We are excited to be here with you today to learn today about NYJA, the New York Jewish Agenda, founded in 2020, which unites liberal mainstream Jews in New York City and state, whose positions on key issues are informed by shared Jewish and democratic values. NYJA advocates and educates on key priorities in New York City and state and support of a democratic Israel and just resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to combat anti-Semitism. We're here with Matt Nosanchuk, who is president and co-founder of the New York Jewish Agenda, a nonprofit organization founded in 2020. He previously held senior roles in the Obama administration, including as liaison to the American Jewish community and on the National Security Council staff. An experienced attorney, Matt also worked at the Department of State, Homeland Security and Justice in Congress at the DNC and as a Skadden Fellow. For his work advancing LGBTQ plus equality, he received the Attorney General's Distinguished Service Award and the American Bar Association's inaugural Stonewall Award. Matt graduated from Stanford University and Stanford Law School, where he was a Truman Scholar. Matt, thanks so much for taking time today to talk.
Sure, and great to see you, Shmuly. How are you?
So just to jump right, kick it right off, if you can tell us, NYJA, why was this established? Why was this needed? What inspired this?
Right, great question. So what inspired the creation of the New York Jewish Agenda was a recognition that there needed to be a voice for the pluralistic and diverse Jewish community of New York City and state, whose Jewish values shape their commitments on issues of social justice, on state and local issues, their support for democratic Israel and a just resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and a shared commitment to combating anti-Semitism wherever it arises. And there was a sense that in New York, the loudest voices too often were arising from the political extremes, and that the majority of Jews who are pluralistic and diverse, and that's diverse in terms of their religious affiliations within the Jewish community, in terms of their racial and ethnic backgrounds, their geography, their age, that this group of New Yorkers needed to be organized as a Jewish voice whose Jewish values would animate their advocacy and educational activities. So that's why we created NYJA.
That's awesome. And so it's such a large population and incredibly diverse, and your agenda is so large. How do you think about priorities within all that currently? Like, what are some of your top priorities right now?
Sure, it's a great question. So what we were founded to do is to be the Jewish voice that, we have our views and our priorities with respect to issues here at home. We bring our values to our positions here. We bring our values to how we interact with and relate to Israel. And, we're not checking our values at the door. And so we feel also that in the political environment here, you can talk about local issues, but Israel is a factor. What an elected official, whether they're a federal elected official or a state and local elected official, how they engage with issues around Israel and anti-Semitism is important to us as members of the Jewish community. And so we want to be sure that we're showing up to inform them how we think about these issues, so that they're not making assumptions that, that the Jewish community thinks X, Y, or Z about a particular issue. I mean, obviously in the Jewish community, you have 3 Jews and 10 opinions. So, we're not trying to represent the entirety of the Jewish community, but we are seeking to organize those who really hold these pluralistic and diverse values, and sort of sit in the majority position in the Jewish community in terms of our politics and commitments. So our priorities include key issues that are on the agenda today. For example, there's a lot of discussion about public safety and criminal justice reform. We helped to co-found the New York Jewish Coalition on Criminal Justice Reform, and we have supported greater understanding of the importance of criminal justice reform because of the inherent racism that exists in the criminal justice system that needs to be addressed. At the same time, many people in New York and around the country have increased fears about public safety, and we need to be able to educate them and understand how their concerns can be fulfilled. At the same time, we're not creating a more punitive and more racially discriminatory criminal justice system. We have elections in New York. Actually, we had elections in 2021 at the municipal level. In 2022, there are statewide elections for governor and for the New York legislature. There are, of course, midterm elections for the Congress. And we want to be sure that the individuals running for elected office understand who the pluralistic Jewish, diverse Jewish community is and what we care about, and that we care about a lot more than just Israel and anti-Semitism. Those are important issues to us, but we care about other issues too. So we marry the kind of focus on the domestic priorities that are often social justice oriented with our education advocacy work around Israel and anti-Semitism.
Amazing, amazing. So looking at some challenges and opportunities, when you look at the New York Jewish trends and the broader national Jewish trends right now, what are some things that you find exciting and kind of animating around those trends? And what are some things you find concerning?
But I think first, let me start with the concerning, because what's concerning is partly, what led us to launch in the first instance, which is the increasing polarization that we're seeing in our politics. And that polarization, which certainly is existing in the national political conversation, is also showing up in the Jewish community. And we are navigating among the polarization and saying, among the polls and saying, look, the majority of Jews in New York actually hold views and values that are shared, and that there is, when it comes to issues around Israel, around certain priorities, there is a space for a measured, more nuanced approach to these issues. And so we are trying to find the nuance, find the common ground within the Jewish community, that generally lies in the left of center political space. So that's one challenge that we're seeking to address. And the opportunity that we see is an opportunity for the Jewish community to be showing up around a wide range of issues in the state and local arena, in the social justice arena. The Jewish community in New York has played a significant role for decades, more than a century, in sort of advancing issues like immigration reform, workers' rights, civil rights. And we want to make sure that we continue to show up and that we have a seat at the table working with our partners in other organizations who share our values and our priorities, and make sure that we can contribute and bring our voice, our leverage, our connections, our commitments to advancing these issues, and also seek to build greater understanding within the New York elected official realm, and also among progressives in New York around issues relating to Israel and anti-Semitism, and that we're showing up with our values on all of these issues, and therefore have increased our credibility as a valued partner in the political arena in New York City and state.
So interesting. So just one last question for you today, Matt, and I appreciate your work. You're doing so much. How do you think about Judaism informing our sense of justice work today? I mean, Torah is so deep, so broad, so eternal, so long lasting. And then we look at this contemporary moment and try to bridge that. And then we look at the diversity of Jews and add on religious pluralism. How do you think about that translation and that connection?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our website, nyja.org, nyja.org, I encourage folks to go there. We articulate different values, including, responsibility, unity, justice. These are all, core Jewish values that we can find in the text. And we identify these and other values as animating our identity as engaged Jews who are working on education and advocacy in New York City and state. And so, when it comes to issues around, support for Israel, we're looking at ways of furthering, justice, equality, responsibility, these issues, these values show up across the board with respect to the other issues about which we're concerned. And the fact of the matter is that, growing younger generations of Jews are very much rooted in these types of values and these sort of, more liberal social values that form their commitment to advancing social justice, and they're expressing their Judaism, with respect to issues like criminal justice reform, like Black Lives Matter, like civil rights, like immigration reform. I mean, this is for them the way in which they are expressing and furthering their own Jewish identity. It's not like it was at one time for many people, simply, support for Israel, no matter what Israel says or does, or identifying Israel as the principal unifying force for, unifying factor for Jewish identity in America. I mean, we've had a growing diversity of ways in which Jews of all ages are becoming engaged on a whole host of issues. And we want to bring together the Jews of New York City and state who are, sharing these pluralistic values and express those values as a Jewish voice. That's a powerful Jewish voice that reflects the community here.
Amazing. Friends, check out NIJA's website, check out their social media platforms, find out how you can support and plug in as well. Matt, keep up all your amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shmuly. Great to see you.
Great to see you.